started and unpause. So again, I will live Zoom today for section 2.1. So I'm going to leave 2.2 open in Math Lab if you wanted to go ahead and work it, but I'm not going to teach it until Monday. Okay, so it'll be bumped. I need to write that down. I'm going to change the due date for 2.2 to next, not this coming up Sunday, but the following one. But I am going to leave it open, so it will be available for you to work if you wanted to work ahead. And again, if you wanted to, you can always, if you wanted to work ahead, because I will open 2 weeks of assignments, and if you wanted to work ahead,
We request my Math Lab math course on or my Math Lab math all assignments?
all assignments. You could go to my YouTube channel. I think the easiest way to find it is Shelly Hansen, Math Instructor. And search for college algebra and then whatever section we're covering. So if you wanted to search for section 2.2, just type in under, when you get to my channel, college algebra section 2.2. Okay. Now, if you see, there's a couple of different, I need to make some of them private because there is, I made some videos one summer, but while I was home, so it's just my hand, like using a document camera. It still does the job, but it's not like me, it's like sharing my screen when I need to and stuff like that. So make sure you see like my face and then click on that 2.2, okay? All right, so getting started with 2.1, the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna graph this by hand, but the most things that people have trouble with on this section is the different graphing kind of things to do in Math Lab. So I'm gonna share my screen and just give you some good tips for that. Okay, like Miss one says, graph the equation by plotting points. Y equals 3/2 x plus 1. Okay, so the first thing you want to happen when you are doing any kind of graph is you want the y to be by itself. Okay, you want it to say y equals. You don't want anything else over here with this y. Okay. Now, there's many reasons for that, but also, you know, one of the main reasons for that is when you're going to graph in your calculator, it's got a y equals button, right? That's the button that you go to graph in. Like if you're going to graph, you would hit that y equals. Okay, so that's why you can't put anything in that y equals area of your calculator unless you see y equals. Okay, so this one is already like that. Now, let me show you, if you didn't have a calculator, all the stuff you would have to do this. And then we're going to do the rest of them in the calculator. Okay, but just to show you what the calculator is doing for you, again, we spent a lot of money on this calculator. We're going to use it. Okay?
Ms. Hanson?
Drawing this out, you would have to make a XY chart. You can choose any numbers you want to plug in for the X. Okay? It only takes 2 points to graph. This one's a straight line. So I'm gonna come up with probably 3 points. Okay? So if you have a fraction hooked onto your X, you want to try to avoid having fractions in the points that you're going to create. Right? Nobody wants to plot points at 3/2 or 7/2. Okay, we want good whole numbers. They're easier to plot on the graph. So to avoid getting fractions, if you have a fraction hooked onto your X, is you want to use multiples of this denominator, of whatever that number is. First of all, the best number to always use is 0. right? We like to multiply by 0, we like to add with 0, we like to subtract with 0 because the rules are very straightforward. So let's look. If I use this 0 to plug it in for this x, I would have y equals 3/2. I've told x to be 0. I told it that, right? I said x is 0 plus 1. Here's why we like zeros. Even if this is a fraction, if you multiply it times 0, you're just left with 0, right? Bring down the plus 1, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So this is like a machine. You plug in something for x, it spits out the y that goes with it. So I plugged in 0 for x, and it spit out the 1 to go with it for the y. Okay, so I've taken care of my 0. Now, like I said, I'm going to use multiples of this number. That means numbers that 2 goes into. So the first thing I'm going to use is 2. So what happens next? You're just going to replace that number that you plug in for x. Now I'm telling x to be 2. So here's why you use the 2, because when I'm multiplying here, this 2 cancels out that one. So all I'm left with from all this mess right here is this 3. Right? If the 2's cancel, all that's left is 3. Again, drop down that plus 1.
Okay, question. So why does the 2 cancel out 2?
Because when you're multiplying, let's see, we're actually multiplying 3 over 2 times 2 is the same thing as saying 2 over 1. If you're multiplying fractions and you have a factor in the top that is anywhere, same as the factor in the bottom, it'll cancel. If I didn't cancel it, which is fine, remember when you're multiplying fractions, what do? Straight across in top, straight across in bottom. Adding fractions is where you get all kinds of rules about common denominators and all that. Not in multiplication, just in adding and subtraction. When you're multiplying, you don't care that you don't have the same. You just go straight on top, straight on bottom. So if I did that, up top I have 3 times 2 is 6. In bottom I'd have 2 times 1 is 2.
You figure 3.
There's your 3. Yeah. Yeah. So you could, again, the shortcut is if you have a 2 in top
Okay, I see that. I see.
and a 2 in bottom, they can cancel each other out. And there's your 3 that way too. Okay? So that's why all this turns into 3. The 2's canceled. I drop down the plus 1, which gives me 4. So what did I just do? I plugged in the 2 into the machine for the x. It spit out this 4 to go with it. So let's see, I need to replace the x with one more thing.
4.
Okay, I'll do 4. Because 2, that's the same thing gonna happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when this one cancels, it's not 2 over 2, so it doesn't just cancel and go away. It's 4 over 2. And what's 4 over 2 really the same thing as? What is 4 over 2? It's 2. So this really turns into a 2 now. So I'm left with 3 times 2. Right? You with me? The 4 over 2 went away and turned into a plain 2. So now I'm left with 3 times 2 here, which is 6. Again, drop down that plus 1. So what did you get?
Y equals 6 plus
Y?
1, which equals 7.
Right, good. So what did I plug into the machine for the x? 4. What did it spit out for the y to go with it?
7.
Now, these are points that this line goes through. That's what you're finding when you make that XY chart. Points that the line goes through. So let's plot those 3 points. So plotting points, the X tells you how far you're going left and right. The Y tells you how far to go up and down, all depending on whether you're positive or negative. So let's see, my X, and I'm starting here. If my X is 0, I don't travel anywhere. Now remember, you go both directions, and your point is where you end up after you do your X move and your Y move. So my X move told me not to go anywhere. My Y move, remember Y moves tell you up and down. So my Y move would tell me to go up 1. So I've done my X move, just told me not to go anywhere because it was 0. And then my Y move told me to go up 1. Okay, so I'm done with this point. Now let's do this one. Starting again, this is called the origin. I'm starting at the origin. My X move is 2, so I'll go to the right 2. Don't drop anything until you've done your Y move also, right? You got to do your X move and Y move. So I've done my X move is 2. My Y move tells me to go up 4 from there. So there's another point. So I'm taking care of this point. My last point is at 4, 7. So my X move tells me to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. My Y move tells me to go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And look where it is. So you'll notice, if you connect all 3 of those points, there's the line that you have graphed. Now, if you have your TA 83 or 84 calculator, I'm going to show you how to make your calculator do all the math part of this for you. All of this work that I did here to make this table, we can tell our calculator to do that for us. Okay, so what you're going to do is go to your Y equals button. If there's anything in there, so go back to Y equals and hit clear. Or did you already graph it? Did you? Okay, you know, that's probably right. If it did, yeah. Just leave that right there. That's probably it. So in my Y equals here, I'm going to put 3 over 2x plus 1. So 3 divided by, that's how you're going to get your fraction bar, the division button. 3 over 2. Your X button is this button right here. It's got an X, a T, and some other stuff. That'll give you your X. And then plus 1. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is graph it just to get an eyeball look at what it looks like. Now, what I want to know when I go into Math Lab, this is all fine and good. This gives me a good picture of what my graph should look like when I graph it. But I want to know this information. So, because when I go to Math Lab, I've got to plot points. I can't just free draw a line that looks like this. So what you're going to do to get that table is hit your second button. Usually it's blue or green, or no, not green. That's probably alpha. Hit your second button. And then look at this graph button, what the blue function is, because that's what the second button does on your calculator. It gets you to all these blue functions. I'm going to hit that again because the blue function of that is table. So I hit second table. Look what it gave me. So look what it did. It did this for you. It not only gave you those 3 points, it gave you all the points. So then you're just, when you're graphing, is picking out of that table. What you want to do is avoid the points that have decimals if you can, right? You want good whole number points. Which means I don't want these 2.5 points, okay? There might be some points that sometimes you can't avoid that, and that's fine, but most of the time you can avoid it because you can just scroll up and down till you can find one that doesn't have a decimal, okay? So again, my first point was at 0, 1. Well, there's that point right there that I'm highlighted on. That's the 0, 1. My second point was 2, 4. There's that one. My third point was 4, 7. There's that one. I can choose any of them I want. So now that would tell you how to plot your points. So now I'm going to go to Math Lab and share my screen on the Zoom. So that way you can see. Now I'm going to tell you now how to put that in as your answer. Now I'm going to have to do another one. Oh, good job, Will. I'm going to have to do another one because it's going to just give me a different problem. It'll be very similar, right, when I bring up my homework. Okay, so I'm going to go to College Algebra 1A. I'm going to go to My Lab Student Links, My Lab Math All Assignments, right? These are the steps that you're taking also to get to your homework. You don't have to be doing it right now, but when you do your homework. So we're not in the support section. I'll talk about that at the end of class. This 2.1 graphs of equations is what we're doing. So I'm going to go to question 1. So my question says now y equals 3/2 x plus 2. So it's very similar to this one. It's just that that one's going to be plus 2 instead of plus 1. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in the calculator. So follow those same steps that we just did in the calculator. Go to your y equals button and clear it out. I'm going to type in 3/2x plus 2. I'm going to hit graph just because I want to eyeball it and see what it should look like once I graph it. Now I'm going to second table. Is one of y'all unmuted? Or is that just how it's doing? So here's my options. I'm just going to pick 2 of them, right? I'm just looking at that table. And I'm just going to pick 2. And again, it doesn't matter which ones. I see at the top, -2, -1. Again, you can pick any of them you want. And I'm going to pick another one. I'll pick 0, 2. So you can pick any two points that you want when you're graphing a line. Okay, so now let's graph it in Math Lab. I'm going to plot these 2 points. So go over here to click to enlarge graph. Now, this yellow rectangle at the top kind of gives you your step-by-step things it wants you to do. Okay, it says click the graph, choose a tool in the tool palette. So the first thing you're going to do is come over here to all these different shapes that you can draw. Y'all see what I'm talking about over in that palette? It's called a tool palette, I guess. I'm drawing a line, right? I've already graphed it. I already showed what it looked like in my thing. So I know I'm going to draw a line. So I'm going to hit that line tool. Now, the hash marks in this particular graph, do you see how like that would be 2, 4, 6, 8. Do you see how the lines are going by twos? That can be very confusing when you're trying to graph. So there's a cheat area. Do you see up in that yellow rectangle in the right corner of it? Mine says I'm at 8, 8 negative. That's telling you where your cursor is. So when I'm plotting, it's hard to tell on a graph like this because the boxes, you see the boxes are tiny. Can't even hardly make my eyes see that small. Okay, but up in that area, it's telling me that my cursor right now is at 8, negative 1. I want my cursor to be, if I'm plotting this point, at negative 2, negative 1. So look up in that yellow box when I'm moving my cursor. Do you see how it's changing along with me moving? So see, yours is going to be different. You're going to have to type that into the calculator. So I need to plot this point at negative 2, negative 1. So I'm going to move my mouse. Now, do you see how what I am plotting, which is negative 2, negative 1, is what is up in that yellow box now? Okay. Again, look where my cursor is. This graph is so tiny that it's hard to see. So I'm just going to trust up in that yellow box that my cursor is at negative 2, negative 1. And I'm going to hit my mouse. Now I need to plot at this other point at 0, 2. So I'm going to go, see, and then, see, when you move your mouse around, your line's going to be doing crazy stuff. Just ignore it. I'm going to get to 0, 2, which is where I need to be to plot my second point, and hit my mouse again. Save it and check it. And move on to the next question. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and go to number 2. Okay, number 2 on the homework sheet says graph the equation by plotting points again. This time I have 4y plus 2x equals negative 8. Okay, so on this one, I can't do the magic I want to do in my calculator until this says y equals, right? Your button in your calculator that does all the work I want it to do is a y equals button, which means I need to maneuver this stuff around until I get the y by itself. So in order for this y to be by itself, the first thing I need to do is get rid of this plus 2x. So I will subtract 2x. If I subtract 2x on this side of the equal sign, remember the rules of equations. If you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other. So I'm going to subtract 2x over here. So on the left, it's gone. There's my 4y equals. Now, these two terms are not like terms, right? I can't put that negative 8 and that negative 2x together because one's an x and one isn't. So they're just going to come down as two separate terms, okay? And it doesn't matter who comes first and who comes last, okay? I'm going to put my negative 2x in front of my minus 8, and the only reason is because I just like my x to come first and my other number to come last. Doesn't matter. So let's see. If if I put my negative 2x first and my minus 8, okay, still working on getting the y equals. Okay, if there's a number hooked onto your y, you get rid of it by dividing by 4. If I do it here, I got to do it to all this. So now let's see, the 4's gone. There's my y equals. That's what I'm looking for. Now, these created fractions over here. So negative 2/4. You can actually keep it like that. It's going to graph it right. But if you, the technical thing to do would be to reduce this to negative 1/2. Again, it'll still graph it exactly right without reducing that. So negative 2/4 reduces to negative 1/2 x minus 8/4, or 8 divided by 4, which is 2. That's what I'm going to put in my y equals. So go to y equals and clear it out. So again, you're just going back to clear. Negative 1/2. Remember, your negative button is below the 3. It's not the minus button, it's the negative button. So negative 1 divided by 2 gives me that negative 1/2. Remember, your x button is here. And then minus 2. So minus 2. Let's eyeball it and see what, again, a good thing to do is to eyeball it, because remember, when you get into Math Lab, the first thing you're going to have to do when you graph something is to go over to that tool palette and tell Math Lab what shape you're about to graph. Because they're not all lines, right? Some of them are the U's, the parabolas, some of them are V's. There's all different kinds of shapes that we're going to do, even in this section. So you want to eyeball it to see what kind of shape you're making, and then hit second table, which is the second, and then the graph button again, and pick you out some points. Pick you out some points that don't have decimals. Okay, I'm not going to go to Math Lab to graph this one. You can use the example that I did on number 1 if you need some more help graphing a line. I want to use that time to graph other shapes that we're going to use later in this section. Any of these, like I don't want it to do anything that has a decimal. So the one you're on is good, negative 4, 0. That one's good, negative 2, negative 1. I want to use that one. That one's good, 0, negative 2. So you just want to avoid those decimal points. Even if your points that you choose are different than the points that I choose, it's going to make the same graph. It's going to make the same graph. Your points do not have to be the same as mine. The line will still be the same. So let's see. I'm going to plot some points. Negative 2, negative 1. So negative 2, negative 1 would be there. 0, negative 2. I'll pick that one. So my x is 0, so it won't go left or right at all. My y is negative 2, so I'll go down 2. So let's say you didn't choose one of those points. You chose a different one. Let's just say you chose 4, negative 4, right? It's in my list. I can choose anything in this table. So 4, negative 4, my x is 4, so it would tell me to go to the right 4. My y is negative 4, so I would go down 4. So look, what it would do is it's still a point on the same line. So it doesn't matter if you choose the same points in the example that I do. You can choose any points out of the table. It's all going to make the same shape. Okay? So yeah, it's going to make the same shape. Now, I'm going to go now to number 3, and I'll do number 3 on the board, and then I'll also do that one on Math Lab because it's going to make a different shape. Actually, I'm just going to do it in the calculator. So y equals negative 2x squared. I've already got my y equals. So I don't need to move anything around here. So I'm going to go now straight to y equals, clear it out, and type in what I'm graphing, which is negative 2x squared. Remember, your negative is below your 3, negative 2x. Now, there's several different ways to type in squared. Actually, squared is the one that actually you can just hit this x squared button. That'll give you x squared. So I hit that button right there. Any other exponent, to get up into the exponent, you will use this little up arrow thing. That puts you up in the exponent. So negative 2x squared. Let's graph this and see what it looks like. So a different shape, right? An upside down U. That's what happens when you have an x squared. If you're x squared, that's what makes that U shape. There's several different things that move it around the graph, flip it upside down, things like that. But that's what you want to do. Now, when I go to Math Lab, I'm still going to have to plot points. So how do you get your points? Same way. Second table. There's your list of points to choose from. So let's see, I could choose negative 2, negative 8. I could choose negative 1, negative 2. I could choose 0, 0. I could choose 1, negative 2. Okay, I'm just going down to this 2, negative 8. Okay, I could choose any of those I want. Okay, so the reason it makes this U shape is look what, when x is negative 2, its y is negative 8. Look at when x is positive 2. Its y is also negative 8. That's what makes that U shape. That's what makes that mirroring happen. Okay, now I'm going to share. And go to number 3. So this time I'm graphing y equals negative x squared. So I'm going to go to my y equals, and the reason I'm doing this in Math Lab again is to show, because since it's a different shape, I want to make sure that, I don't want you to spend 30 minutes figuring out how to make different shapes. Okay, so negative x squared is what I'm graphing. So again, I'm going to graph it just to get an eyeball to tell me what tool to use. So I need to be using that U-shaped tool. Now, second table. There's where I'm going to pick my points from. Let's see. Negative 2, negative 4. Negative 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1. It's not going to tell me to plot 4 points. So now that I know what shape I'm graphing, the points I'm going to use to make that, then I go to click here to enlarge graph. First thing you got to do is choose the tool, right? So this time, look what it says. When I hover over that U, 3-point quadratic tool. Now, if your highest exponent is a 2, it's called a quadratic, okay? So we'll get into a lot more of that later. It's not important right now. So I'm gonna click that U shape. Now, click the graph to plot the first point of your curve. So again, there's your cheat, right? This is where, up in the right-hand corner of that yellow rectangle tells you where you are. I'm going to plot negative 2, negative 4. So do you see how this negative 2, negative 4 matches the coordinates in my yellow rectangle? That means I'm where I need to be, so I will put a point. Now, look what, when I move my graph around, it looks like it's about to draw a line, but it's not. Just ignore that. You've told it you want a U shape. Once you plot another point, I'm actually going to skip down and plot this one because I feel like 0, 0 is the easiest place to find on the graph. So I'm going to go to 0, 0. Again, just to make sure, I'll look up at my yellow rectangle to see that 0, 0 coordinate. There's another point. Again, doesn't look like a U shape to me, but look when I start moving around. So it wants me to, again, in the yellow blocks, click the graph to plot the last point of your curve. So just pick another point. I'll just pick -1, -1. So -1, -1, which is where I am. That also, if you're looking in your graphing calculator, that's the same thing that looks like in your graphing calculator, right? So I'm pretty confident. -1, -1. There's your upside down U. Save it. Check it. Okay? Now, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to, instead of doing what's on the homework sheet, which is x squared plus 3, if you wanted to, I'm going to do the one that's in my math lab. So I don't have to go back and forth since we're going to run out of time. I want to get through all of these. I'm going to do x squared plus 2. Okay, so if you have your homework sheet printed out, you don't have to, it's no big deal. I'm going to do x squared plus 2 instead of x squared plus 3. So again, I'll just go to my y equals, clear it out, hit my x button, hit my squared button, and then hit plus 2. Graph it. It should be a U again, right? X squared graphs make those U shapes. They're called quadratics. So that's what my math lab graph should look like once I plot the points. So I need to get some points. So I'll hit second table. There's all the points I need, plus more. So let's see. What am I graphing? X squared plus 2. I'm just going to pick any one I want. -2, 6. Let's see. Last time it made me, when I was graphing that U shape, it made me plot 3 points. So I'm going to write down 3 points. -1, 3, and 0, 2. I'll plot those 3. Click to enlarge. Time to tell it you want to draw the U shape again and start plotting points. This one will be at -2, 6. So left 2, up 6. So there's of it, -2, 6, right? You can see it in the yellow rectangle. Hit a point. -1, 3 is my next point. So -1, 3. Hit another point, and my last point is at 0, 2. Oh, plotted it real fast. I hope that's where I was. Save it. Check it. Okay, number 5 is a multiple choice, and we're actually lucky because it looks like, yeah, the one that's in math lab is the same exact one that was on my homework sheet. So I'm just going to type it in, and it's multiple choice. So -3 divided by x. This is what's called, it's going to give me it's called a rational function when your x is in the denominator like that. The shape it's going to make is that shape, right? A and C look like they're both just straight lines. Those are called linear functions, and those come in when you just have an x. It's not squared, it's not in the denominator, it's not inside absolute value bars, it's not cubed. A plain x graph is what makes those straight lines, okay? So let's see. This one has that shape right there. Okay, which looks like it would match what? Looks like B in this situation. Good. Okay, good. Here's what I wanted to get. Okay. Again, if you're looking at the homework sheet, I'm going to change it to the absolute value. That's what those straight line bars around that function are. That's telling me absolute value. So we need to be able to find that on your calculator. So I'm going to do absolute value of x plus 6 is what I'm going to graph. Okay, this is the one I really wanted to get to because this one actually makes you plot, if I remember right, specific points to start off with. So what I need to do, again, is go to y equals and clear it out. I need to type in those absolute value bars. If you hit this math button, and then go over, use your right arrow button and go over to that number, NUM. Look at what number 1 is under that. Mine says ABS with a little parenthesis. That's your absolute value function. So I want to hit enter because that's what's highlighted, right? Is that absolute value. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And look what it does in your y equals. It gives you those absolute value bars. So inside those absolute value bars, I will type in x plus 6. And then I'm just going to hit the right arrow to get out of the absolute value bars. You don't necessarily have to. But if there was something else outside of those absolute value bars, you would want to make sure that you hit that right arrow to get out of them. Whoops, sorry. All over the place. Let's graph it and see what kind of shape this is going to make. Absolute value functions make V's. So when I go, so I'm still going to need points. So I'll hit second table to get my points. Now let's go to click to enlarge. Come over here and hover that absolute value tool. Look what you get when you hover over that V shape. It says absolute value tool. Now look what the yellow box says. It says click the graph to plot the vertex. It's not asking for any random point. It's asking for a very specific point. So I'm going to hit the graph button again. The vertex is this point right here where the V comes down and makes its point. So eyeball that. That to me looks like it's lying right there on that x-axis. That point is going to be where the y is 0, right? If that point, right, it hadn't gone up or down, it's lying on that x-axis. So now go back to second table and look over here in your y's for the 0. That vertex is right there at that -6, 0. Right? Because that's where that V came down and made that point. That's the point it's telling me to plot first, is the vertex. So right over here, do you see where my cursor is right now on that x-axis at -6, 0? Now, when I put that point, and now it just says plot another point. Now you can plot any of the other points from the table that you want. So if I go back to my table, I'll just plot -5, 1. So do you see when I went to, again, that yellow box tells me where my cursor is, -5, 1, and hit another point. Once your graph turns blue, that means, turns from blue to yellow, that means it's done. Save it. and check it. Oh, good. I like it when Math Lab and my homework sheet are the same thing. So number 7, x to the 3rd plus 2. All right, I'm just going to do it in my calculator. Right, I don't want to waste time plugging in numbers for x, plugging them into the machine, getting the y's when I can just go to my y equals, clear it out. So I need to type in x to the 3rd. So hit your x, and since it's not squared, to get up into the exponent, you need to hit this little up arrow button thing. So when I hit that up arrow, you can see the blinking cursor went up into the exponent, so you'll hit the 3. Now, do you see how my cursor is still up in the exponent? Make sure you hit your right arrow button. That's what brings you back down. Plus 2. So let's graph it. Ooh, different shape, right? Because now I'm x cubed. So it's going to give me a different shape. Different things happening to the x is what's giving you all these different shapes. So I want to look at that. Now I'm going to go to second table to get all of my points. I'm going to click to enlarge graph. Over here, see that squiggle? This says 4-point cubic tool, right? Because it was x cubed. So I'm going to hit that. Now it just says graph to click, plot your first point. Doesn't matter. Any points. I would scroll down here until you're not going to be able to graph these -214s and stuff like that. So come down here where your numbers are good. So -2, -6, -1, 1. 0, 2. And 1, 3. So you see when I got to that last point, it made that squiggle. Save it and check it. Okay. Now your last one that we don't have time for is that x squared minus 6. Nothing new. Nothing new there, right? It's going to be an x squared graph, which is going to make a u. So you're just going to go, just do exactly what we've been doing on all of these. And plot your points. Okay, I got to go down to Arnitra Acre. Hang on, let me go to. So either go ahead if you're at home and unmute, so you can either say hi, yes, I'm here, or put it in the chat. I'm going to open up my chat and look at that. Arnitra Acre. Santiago Barron. Okay, Krishana Bennett. Saw you, Jamie Bro. I saw you, Will Chora. I saw you, Natasha Clark. Oh, Santiago, I see you now. Sorry. Richard Clark, I see you. Jackson Hauser. See you. Shonda Hurst. Saw you. Noah Johnson. All right, I do not hear or see Noah. Crystal Keys.
I'm here.
Got you. Aaliyah Malvin. Morgan McEwen. All right, I do not see Morgan. Jamie Moore. Grant Morrison.
Here.
Got you. Andrea Palos. All right, do not see Andrea. All right, Mary Catherine Peak, I saw your name earlier. Tyler, I saw you. Jermaine Smith. All right, do not see Jermaine. Oh, wait. Which Tyler's here? Are they both here? I didn't know I had two. Is it Stevens or Schultz?
Schultz is here.
Schultz is here and Stevens here. I got you. Good. All right, Destiny Todd, Carter Wilson, and Desi Widiardi. Oh, Desi. Okay. Oh, okay. I got you. Okay. All right. So real quick, what I'm going to do, because support does not meet on Fridays. I'm actually going to sit here real quick because I have an office hour and make the 2.1 support video. It's going to be a bunch of other graphing kind of stuff, just some graphing practice. I'm going to stop this Zoom and make that support video so that way it'll be in your week 1 folder, right? Remember where to find the videos. When you go to course content, can y'all see where I am? Did I share my screen? I'm back in Blackboard. Course content, week 1. Once I turn, oh, there's my, see where was the first day of class. So now your 2.1 video will be right here below it. After I'm about to turn this video, this Zoom into a YouTube, it'll be right there below it in your course content. Once I make the 2.1 support video, it will be there also. Okay. Now remember, I will make an email just to make sure everybody knows if you're support or not. I will make separate emails today to let you know whether or not you're support and need to do the support work. It's always there for anybody that wants to do it, but if you're support, then it averages into your grade. Okay, I will see y'all Monday. Have a great weekend. Yes, Grant. 2.1. Oh, he did it privately. Gretchen, I got you. Gretchen, I got you.